So we have a large group of people joining us. Leanne is sick today, but let me welcome out into our adventure our moderator, Ross Gardiner, co-founder of the LA Nightlife Alliance, and coming with him, Dexter Story, Mark Mack, Jeff Schwartz, Alejandro Cohen, Mark Frosty McNeill, and Kai Wilkerson. Come on out, guys.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you all out today. My name is Ross. As Gigi mentioned, unfortunately, Leanne couldn't be with us today. So here we are, all the boys. It's all good. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about who's LA and what is LA. When we had a call during the week to sort of go over some of these ideas, we had about 3, 4, 5 different interpretations about what that panel discussion will actually entail. So we're going to try and kind of crisscross and traverse our way through it today. But my name is Ross. So I'm one of the founding members of the Los Angeles Nightlife Alliance. We're like a volunteer-run organizing coalition. We're basically looking to try and advance and further nightlife culture in the city of Los Angeles, really very much taking our lead from other cities like Berlin, Amsterdam, London, New York, all of which have kind of organized or had some kind of grassroots movement to sort of to try and push nightlife culture as being a policy agenda for the city. Prior to that, I was a music journalist for a number of years, and the largest part of my focus was very much mental health within the electronic music community, which, if you're familiar, is a big, big challenge. So what I would love to do today is have everyone just kind of introduce themselves, the organization that you are here today representing, or the reason you're here on this panel. And if you wouldn't mind, share an experience of the sort of time that you fell in love with live music in Los Angeles, or give me some kind of anecdote which is emblematic of the live music experience in LA. So should we start with you, Mark?
Okay. My name is Mark Mack. I teach at the School of Architecture here at the department across the street here. And I'm about to retire and open up a new company or venue called Archidance. And I'm just simply trying to get architects to dance. They're notoriously bad in sort of moving their feet or even getting out. So they like to talk, they like to drink, but not to dance. So one of the things I was always interested in public space, how we can kind of envision a public space which is not commercialized, which is not, which is open to many different interpretation. And that, unfortunately, architects were masterminding a sort of divided modern city through zoning and through other mechanisms which prohibit certain activities in certain areas. And this is detrimental to life in the city. And so this kind of Archidance, what I envision is to use architectural significant spaces and make music in front of it. And so hopefully get a crossover that architects come and hopefully they dance in front of their architecture.
Thank you, Mark.
Oh,
yeah, you didn't share me that experience.
Yeah, I think I was very interested in music. I think I came to LA because of the Mothers of Invention. But they were gone. Then I sort of grew up and became kind of a successful architect and a teacher. And so time for music became less. But then my son got interested in rave music when he was like 13, and I had to drive him to all these places and hang out in front of it because or stay in diners to kind of wait until 2 o'clock in the morning until he gets out again. So that brought me into a new realm of electronic music and merging sort of my sort of more intellectual sort of experience of modern music together with sort of new trends and new sounds. So since that, I became myself a DJ. I took a course here at UCLA to do some spinning. And since then, I sort of am I sort of a amateur DJ and also try to sort of get out more, and have been, at some of the raves. I remember, people were asking, like young people on ecstasy were asking me, like, how long are you raving? You get gray hair and things. So yeah, I've been raving for 40 years now. So it was always nice to sort of come into these new environments and have interesting people and sort of show them that even at 70, you can still move your feet.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Dexter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dexter Story, and I like to start backwards. The first concert or live experience I had in Los Angeles was the Funk Festival at the Memorial Coliseum in 1977. It was the first concert I went to. I think I had been to many smaller things, but that's where I was present to the live experience. And, I had a chauffeur, I had a guardian with me, and, there was a lot of craziness going on. I was pulled out of the concert, then brought back in and pulled out, and, because there are gun scares and there's all kinds of, but anyway, it was one of those experiences that I'll never forget. And I think there was Parliament Funkadelic, there was Bar-Kays, Rick James, and so many other artists at that particular show. So, thinking about the question, the first part of it about, who I am, I represent myself. I'm a student here now at UCLA. I just graduated I just got my master's in African Studies, and I'm going into ethnomusicology in the fall. And I'm really living in a question about all of this. I consult Community Coalition of South Los Angeles. I'm part of a Connectors Council with the Ford Theater, thanks to my friend Island there. I'm also working with the Music Center now on their community outreach. I perform. I'm an artist. I just released an album. So, if I had to kind of boil all that down to the essence of that question, I think I'm really committed to connecting, and given my now immersion into school, connecting theory with experience, or connecting theory with the ground. As I'm starting to write a lot more and read a lot more, I notice that I have an opportunity to address my writings, even my research, to not just academia, but also to people on the ground. And as a musician, I've used that to not only play music and perform music, but also to talk about the music, or talk about the space, or talk about what informs my compositions, or the experience that we're having as audience and performer. So I think that's kind of how I'm connecting things, if you will. But I'm still in a question and an inquiry about it all too.
I was going to say it was my dream to share a microphone with Dexter Story, but we'll see if it'll happen. A duet. And I'll also say his album, But Here, is incredible. So check that out. I'm Dexter Story's publicist. My name is Mark McNeill. I'm the founder of a nonprofit internet radio station called Dublab, celebrating 20 years. Our executive director is right there, Ale Cohen. The only man foolish enough to take over when I ducked out of that role, but brave. For myself, I came to Los Angeles total, in school in '94 to go to USC, landed there, didn't know the city at all. And my kind of huge epiphany when it came to Los Angeles and the kind of music spectrum here was close to USC, but in a way it was a world away because it was a bubble, the campus, and I was very interested in breaking out of the bubble. So for me, it was at the World Stage in Leimert Park, and being at one of the Coltrane happenings, anniversaries, and Billy Higgins and Horace Tapscott and all of these incredible players there, where I just was flying around the ceiling of this small venue, a venue that has speakers but didn't need them. It was just music kind of going through your soul, penetrating every kind of particle of your being. And that kind of community-driven space was very important, still is very important. I think those spaces are overlooked within the city. So I'm very interested in places like that and connecting the dots of Los Angeles and understanding that it's not just the kind of flagship venues or festivals, but it's those community-driven spaces. And it's also in homes, it's music salons and living rooms and Oaxacan brass bands playing at baptisms and things like that. So I'm interested in those spaces and radio as being that kind of third place to be able to bring people together from across the expanse of Los Angeles and beyond and give kind of a platform for people to share these stories so that others in LA and outside of LA can start to form a picture. When I came here, it was, this cloudy haze, and through exploration of the back alleys and, small kind of side streets, I was able to, over years, connect the dots. And so those special hidden treasures are out there, and Los Angeles is a city where exploration pays off and getting out. I love Google Maps. I love Waze. I love all this stuff that takes you the fastest route, which might not be the main street, going down and finding a space that is interesting and wanting to revisit it and pause. And so Los Angeles, I think the things that are behind the scenes are some of the most important and great communities to foster. So excited to continue that.
My name is Jeff Schwartz. I'm here, I guess, essentially representing the Santa Monica Public Library, which is my day job, but also kind of a calling. I run something there called the Soundwaves concert series, soundwavesnewmusic.com. We present free public concerts in collaboration with a number of community organizations. The Pianospheres, Jacaranda, Microfest, Dog Star Orchestra Festival, Angel City Jazz Festival. I book a dozen shows myself. They all draw from the, well, let me back up. The Soundwaves series is a way to market DRAM, the Database of Recorded American Music, which is a streaming service organized by New World Records in New York. It's a nonprofit, and it's for independent and artist-run art music labels. So Santa Monica, at my instigation, became the first public library to offer this service, and then I had to figure out a way to get people to use it. So that's part one. Part two is that I'm a working bassist in classical music, Arabic music, and creative experimental improvised music, and I can actually connect about 80% of this panel. I performed at a dublab event at 356 Mission with Anna Homler, so we can talk about 356 Mission and Boyle Heights and gentrification and all that mess if we have to. I performed at the Electric Lodge with Dexter in Adam Rudolph's band. We can talk about Venice and gentrification and all of that mess. And the most popular ever concert on the Soundwaves concert series was Don Preston. So, Mothers of Invention, Don Preston still kicking ass in his 80s. Part three, the most memorable concert I've gone to and probably will ever go to was Fishbone at the Country Club in Reseda in 1985, right when their EP came out. I was a senior in high school, and I'd been to some arena shows, Springsteen, The Who on their first farewell tour. I was not ready for what I saw. I had missed, thanks to the LAPD, seeing the great LA punk bands, right? Black Flag, X, one of those people could dig in LA by 1985. But, oh my God. Right, those guys who were like my age, maybe even a little younger, playing every style of music all at once. It seemed like Angelo could throw his horn in the air, jump in the crowd, get back on stage, break dance, horn, and come back in 8 bars later. It was unbelievable. And it also, completely blew my mind about race and genre and Los Angeles. That Fishbone is a band that could have only happened in LA, right? Because of busing, because of ska in LA, because of a million things, right? You put Fishbone next to any of the Black Rock Coalition bands, God bless them, but nope. And it's hard to remember now with everything available all of the time, how segregated music was in the 80s, right? That classic rock was for straight white dudes, right? Hip hop was for black people and R&B. The only people who went back and forth were Prince and Jimi Hendrix, right? When Fishbone, sang, shit, goddamn, get off your ass and jam for the encore, I thought they made that up. They didn't play Funkadelic anywhere on the radio, It was unbelievable. It just completely, blew my mind. And, I don't know what else to say about that.
Hello, my name is Alejandro Cohen. As Mark said, I'm the director of dublab. We were a nonprofit radio station based here in Los Angeles. Now we expanded to satellite sister stations and affiliate stations in Brazil, Germany, Spain, and Japan. Sorry. And we've been doing this as a labor of love, as a nonprofit. Something I was talking to Kyle before, it gives you certain stability, gives you a structure to conduct your ideas, to a place for the community to be. So I'm grateful for that. I think that's one of the biggest things the organization does for all of us. I moved here in '96. I came to Los Angeles kind of by accident. It's one of those things that a friend invites you. You're not sure about it. You don't really know what to expect. You think you'll end up eventually in New York, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a place that is way, way, way deeper than anyone from the outside think it is. And for a long time, it looks like no one else knew that secret, but it seems like the secret is getting out, and that people are starting to come here from the East Coast, from Chicago, from San Francisco, from Europe. And that brings a whole new wave of changes and experiences. For me, one eye-opening experience as an event in Los Angeles was in 2007, I want to say, when we did a tonalism at what was back then called Farm Lab. And tonalism is an event that we did a couple before, but this was maybe the third installment. It's an all-night ambient music happening. We would do, we still do once or twice a year. And this one was the first one that came with proper funding. And I think now there's a lot of events of similar nature, and by no means we're the first ones on that, but at the time it was something that wasn't as common, at least happening in Los Angeles. And we did it. We went out to Farm Lab, and they're under the bridge in downtown. Now they're called Metabolic Studios, but it's the same people behind it. And we just went with the idea, and they just went for it. And they had funding aside from Annenberg Foundation, and they allowed us to properly produce it. And when we did it, we didn't really know what it was going to be. And really, it became the embodiment of a city that is open to adventures, it's a city that is open to absurd propositions in a good way, like where you're like, show up with your pillows and blankets and sleeping bags and sleep under this bridge in downtown. And people did it, people would show up in their pajamas, and be there, and we served breakfast in the morning, and it was a big crowd. It was how many people? Yeah, it was 2,000 people that came. It was packed. I think there was a rave or some warehouse party happening a few blocks away. So the cops showed up at some point, and they showed up and they saw everyone laying down. under the bridge, and they just left. They're like, well, we can't break this up, and that was very interesting, and that experience really showed how open the city is to experiences, to new ideas, to a sense of you know what, never done that, but sure enough, I'll join you and lay down under a bridge, all night listening to ambient music. And I don't know, that to me was an eye-opening, which went on to really influence the way we do things at the station. Never backing down, never looking to do a bad version of someone else's experience or music or things. We got to do it our own way. Surely we take influences from all over. We have our ears open to the entire planet, but I think LA, ultimately, what works here is things that are generated with the spirit of the city. So.
Hi, I'm Kyle Wilkerson with the Bootleg Theater, and my production company, Sit the Cat Presents. I produce 400 plus concerts a year. The Bootleg's kind of an interesting spot. In LA, we do not only music, we do comedy and theater and pro wrestling. So we do quite a bit of different artistic genres. The moment I fell in love with LA and the kind of culture that LA has was actually at the Bootleg. I'm not originally from here. I'm originally from Texas, and the concert was a benefit for the Japanese tsunami. And there was such an interesting feeling I got when I came into the Bootleg. Back in Texas, a lot of the venues are kind of outdoors, and there's kind of a sense of hominess to them. And I didn't really expect that when I came to LA. I kind of thought it would be kind of a sterile, like, rock club, and the Bootleg was not that at all. The type of artists that were there was like really eclectic, and then I kept looking around and seeing like some of my favorite musicians there, and I was like, wow, like LA is like such a large city, but there's such a sense of community, and you saw like all these people kind of crossing paths. And it really drew me to the city, and I moved here shortly after that concert.
Thanks very much, guys. I appreciate that. So, I mean, I think one of the topics that's been introduced very early in this day of panels has been gentrification, and it's been raised a couple of times throughout you guys sharing your stories and some of the things that you're seeing. I want to stay with you, Kyle. You run a small venue, an independent venue in a rapidly gentrifying part of the city. Do you want to kind of talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that small venues face when trying to keep the lights on, but like maintain the sort of integrity and independence of the booking? And maybe we can just sort of go from there.
Yeah, Bootleg's an independent concert venue, and so we don't really have corporate funding or any of that. Excuse me. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to stay in business when you're competing against lots of different things. The neighborhood that Bootleg's in is historic Filipino town, and like things are rapidly changing there, and they've changed dramatically just in the time that I've been there. I've been there for a little over 4 years. We try to book a lot of touring acts as well as a lot of like local musicians. So that's kind of always a challenge to, get people to come out when it's not a band that's, playing big venues. It could be somebody that, typically did house shows or underground, warehouse parties. So yeah, that it can be a challenge.
And so you guys are the guys at dublab, you produce a lot of shows as well. And I mean, like, again, gentrification is an issue that I think, Ali, me and you have spoken about quite a lot. Do you want to sort of talk to me again a little bit about like how sort of gentrification is affecting some of the dublab DJs and the work that they're putting on, and some of the challenges that they face, and some of the spaces that they're producing work in as well?
Well, at the station, we see it front and center. We host our studios in Silver Lake, where it's Santa Monica Boulevard and Virgil, which that particular corner has remained fairly untouched, strangely untouched. It's you go and it's almost except for our neighbors, that is now used to be a clothing manufacturing place. Now it's a ad agency, and you're starting to see those changes. You even see it in the paint job they do, and how the facade looks. That's the first sign. But our particular corner remains kind of untouched. It's such a contrast. It's almost that we are the before, and then next door is the after kind of thing. It's a bit of that, but we see it. We produce shows every day. Our lights go on in the studio at 9 a.m. and we broadcast until 2 a.m. And I'm there about 8 to 9 hours a day. And so I interact with a lot of people that come through to do their shows. And more and more you see someone that is fighting with a landlord, someone that they're moving out. You see someone that it's getting always a little more challenging. Things that were easier are not as easy anymore, or things that were projects that you're doing that in the past you yourself or others would have done. Sure, I'll jump into that even though there's not a lot of money. You start seeing people being like, well, I need this amount in order to do it, because they need to cover their expenses. They need to keep the lights on. They need to eat, and so you're starting to see it more and more. And the dangerous part of that, it changes the creative spirit. Things that were free and easy before, and you can dedicate time to things that were more passion projects, maybe with a little of money. Always people deserve to get paid, but there's less and less room for adventures out there, and that's concerning. I feel that it could affect in the long run the spirit of the city, which has really given so much, really put us in the place where we're now. So that's been my personal experience, how we see it.
And I kind of want to invite that to everybody here. How do you think that we can, as a city, sort of start to alleviate some of that burden on some of our cultural creators and support them a little bit more, so that the pressures of living in the city financially are not going to push them to leave? Like, how do we stop that from happening? Anyone happens to have any suggestions?
Does anybody have money out here? We could pass that.
Well, I think one of the when we look at other cities, and especially, I'm a native from Austria, and Vienna spends incredible amount on their music. Yes, it's mostly classical, but also there's a lot more money going out for sponsorship. And I feel Los Angeles, and Ben Johnson already mentioned that there is a sort of labyrinthian way. You don't know how you get funding. There's not really a sort of a clear source of public funding for musical events. And that, I think, needs to be totally upgraded or increased. If you look at Paris, for instance, the amount of money which is spent on supporting neighborhood music or just the day of music alone, going out over the whole city, is just an incredible amount. And is such to me, it sort of links to the gentrification. Like, I always wonder, I live in Venice, where is the increased money of Venice generated real estate taxes? Where does it go? Does it go back to Venice? Probably not all of it. And is that money actually going to sort of supporting cultural events, or does it just disappear in the city coffer? And so I think there should be just much more accountability of where these money goes. And I think, we have a great opportunity now with the Olympics coming, and there's so much commercial sort of activities around music, and how does this actually go out to the people who actually do it and create it? Because you can only do it for nothing for a short time. When you're healthy, when you don't have a family, and when you live in a cheap place. So all of those things are going away. So how do we make this sort of incubator alive again?
Well, I think what did you say? You said healthy, live in a cheap place, and what was the third one? A family. So, I realize this is beyond LA, but what we're really the best thing that we can do for music and musicians is rent control, student loan forgiveness, universal health care, universal basic income. Did I say student loan forgiveness? I mean, that, you know, that, musical culture and the so-called creative economy right now celebrates the hustle and the grind. You know, the shed is a hard enough master. So, you know, for people to have time to make art, to have time to enjoy art, you know, these are the things. And, you know, short of revolution, you know, I can talk, I guess I'm repping the public sector up here. So, you know, I work with the city's Office of Sustainability and Environment in some non-music programs, but recently they added cultural sustainability to the city's sustainability master plan. And for years, my colleagues and I kind of like scratched our heads about what cultural sustainability meant. You know, some of my colleagues who are children's librarians developed some beautiful crafts with garbage, you know, making things out of, you know, toilet paper tubes and whatever, which is cool, but what does that do for artists? You know, eventually it dawned on me that cultural sustainability is the opposite of creative destruction. That what the, you know, the tech boom and the creative economy, scare quotes again, is doing to Venice and Silver Lake and Culver City and everywhere else is the opposite of cultural sustainability. And that as the public sector, we can step in with the resources we have, with our buildings, with our funds, and provide spaces for this work, which is otherwise being driven out. In Santa Monica, for example, the Temple Bar is now a high-end butcher shop. So, you know, the majority of the live music that's happening, it's happening at places that don't have to pay rent. Schools, at churches, at libraries. So, you know, we have these resources, we can use them to hold up the artists who are otherwise being pushed down.
I wanted to kind of introduce maybe a thing that, so I was involved in a project a couple of years ago in New York City where we gathered a load of data about live music venues in the city. There's 495 venues total. We mapped some of that data against other publicly existing data sets. So for instance, like rent prices, we looked at the racial demographic makeup of neighborhoods, trying to discern what the impact is of music venues in the communities around them. And unfortunately, music venues can be quite sort of destructive to communities when they move in. So we took Bushwick as a good example. Probably about 5 or 6 years ago, there wasn't an awful lot going on in Bushwick, one, you know, sort of outer Brooklyn. A couple of venues pop up out there, and then all of a sudden other things start to come out. And then suddenly there's development happening around there. There's real estate going up. And then all of a sudden it's too expensive then for the people who were in that community, and it's now too expensive for the music venues to be in there. So a question, how can we consciously in this city, as we're about to enter a period of great development and growth, cultural sustainability, how do we start to design our music venues and our spaces a little bit better so that they don't disrupt the communities that they're moving into, but so they don't then succumb to and be victims of their own success when the neighborhoods inevitably change around them?
I mean, I think music venues are important, but I also think that, you know, creative people, I'm an eternal optimist while remaining a realist. And I think that you can hit your head against the wall, and the financial demands of family, rent, et cetera, can be draining. But I'm always interested in the people throughout that continuum who feel that drive. They're going to do it no matter what. And those communities do exist in LA. Some of the most interesting happenings, you know, are in the park. There's one label called Leaving Records, music in the daytime in a park under a tree. And it's in a pocket park in a Highland Park. And it's incredible. That doesn't pay anyone's bills, but I think it's also, this provides some sort of almost like psychic cleansing for people who might be at the grind to be able to go out and listen to incredible music So those kind of activations, I don't think people stop making music, but it is good to think about how you can provide those people, with more of a livelihood and provide spaces that generate income for them. LA has a lot of space, more space than we realize. It's just that everybody wants to live in these clusters and communities. But I think that there's more going on again behind the scenes. And it's rare that you can. I mean, it takes a lot of schmoozing and cold calling to convince the institutions, or the kind of excess kind of thrown off money from the Hollywood economy. The artists get those every once in a while. Once a year, twice a year, you might get that great gig that pays the kind of larger amount of money. But I think as the development happens, hopefully there will also be, not just for low-income housing, money that's set aside through developments. We're seeing them pop up all over, around us in Silver Lake. We're on this gritty edge of Silver Lake, but it's changing. There's, a giant hotel projects coming up around there. So hopefully also money carved out of developments to go into cultural funding, because it is important. It's a hard conversation with, the art galleries moving into areas, music venues. Those do create, desirable kind of living spaces, and then the rents go up. But that's that tricky paradox of gentrification, because people want cultural happenings and positive things in their neighborhood, but it also brings higher rent prices. If I had the answer, I'd be president. No, I don't want to be president.
But I think there's also another aspect which I want to maybe highlight, is that there is this understanding that a performance, or what is a performance? Is it just a top-down kind of stage and audience relationship, or is it something different? And I think we can maybe experiment more with these kind of sort of fringe creative sort of ideas. We are organized for like 4 years now at the Bombay Beach Biennale, which is like an interdisciplinary festival which just exists because the performers and the audience are the same. So it just grew by having more performers, and everybody is an audience and everybody is a performer. So it's like not always possible, but in a sense that we are living in an environment where we are expecting to be fed or sort of entertainment and things like that, and we're forgetting that we actually can be actors in the same environment, and not everybody has to have the same role. So we can be supporters, we can be actors, we just maybe dance or something like that. So I feel there needs to be maybe a more sort of a change of like the understanding what is music performance, what are we doing in that space, and how we can then create different kind of things. Maybe there's spaces or there's places where you can just have 5 people. Sometimes there's 100 people, but we always are seduced by the bigness and by the sort of commercial success of everybody aligns themselves to there. But I think the city or the cultural institution could be a much broader funding source and have different experiences. It doesn't have to be all, like you said, in the evening, or it doesn't have to be in a big hall. It could be very different events, and you get kind of used to it. Like in Venice, for instance, there was really a drought of music places. Now, at least a townhouse sometimes, there's a place you can go always on a Thursday. It will be nice. It will be interesting people, and you know the curatorship there cares about this thing. So if more places like that will happen, then you can be assured that you don't have to look for the big events.
I'm going to sort of, we've got a few minutes left, so I'm going to close up here. Dexter, I wanted to ask you a question, my man. Sorry, just the conversation kind of flowed over you a little bit, but it'll be a nice segue to finish on, because I'm curious to know a little bit more about Los Angeles' place in the world in terms of its music output. Now, as somebody that has brought influences from outside Los Angeles back to this city and created within this city. I wanted to know a little bit about how you felt as Los Angeles as a place to do things like that and to bring outside influences and to realize them here in this city.
Well, I think they're already here. I don't think we need to bring them. I think this community is already diverse. I was going to answer even the last question, just say, I think, for our smaller venues, organizations, musicians, I think it's important. I think the encouragement goes a long way. I think we're in a time and age where we can actually reach out to people and encourage them and kind of tell them, hey, you're doing a great job, or, maybe I would have done something differently, or, just to kind of just voice some perspective. And I think that's important. But, as a musician myself, I'm always learning about new cultures here in Los Angeles. I mean, I think right now culture is so fluid. I mean, it's even tough to use that word culture, but right now I'm seeing so many worlds coming together in Los Angeles, and I'm starting to enjoy them myself. I just moved to Highland Park recently, and I didn't even know about Highland Park growing up, and I got to see Feist a couple of nights ago at the Lodge Room, for example, and I'm, even though she doesn't really speak to maybe something she is from Canada, and it's a whole different kind of experience for me, and I just love her, But I think, to answer your question, there's so many cultures here, and, right now is a really good time for community activists and outreach and for partnerships. And we're starting to see that amongst our arts presenters. We're starting to see, the Ford Theater work with the Skirball. We're starting to see, different partnerships around the arts presenting world that I think we should support. And I think that will bring these cultures together. I've been to some great events around the city at Aratani. I just a shout out to Matt and the Levitt MacArthur Park. I'm starting to see, some life coming out of even traditional venues, and just an awareness and an acceptance and a celebration of the diverse cultures in Los Angeles.
So it seems like things are looking good, things are positive, but there are maybe some structural issues that need to be addressed with the spaces in Los Angeles in which we perform in, because these are quite fickle. They can disappear quite quickly as the neighborhoods change around them, but it seems that the intent and the ideas and the growth is really all here. So we've got all the pieces, guys. I think we're going to conclude on that note now. So if you want to give a big round of applause to all of your panelists, thank you very much, guys. Amazing.